Welcome to A Sex Worker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the answer to life, the universe, and everything is sex workers. I'm your host, Parker Westwood. Today, I am really excited to bring to you a super fun interview. I had the absolute privilege of speaking with Kate Kennedy, who some of you may know, some of you may not, but she is a laugh riot. She's a stand-up comedian and porn star, and is just such a cool person. Really had a fun time with this interview. They also have their own podcasts, the Cam Girl Chronicles, and another podcast that they are co-host of, Two Girls, One Mic, the Porncast. Both those will be linked in the show notes, along with so many other things that we talk about, so check those out. In this episode, we go through a day in the life of Kate Kennedy. We get to talk about coping with isolation, as she tends to film a lot of clips on her own. She works alone often, so dealing with the isolation, not only that provides at work, but in life in general. Talking about sex work community and mutual aid, definitely taking some time to talk about stand-up comedy. And then we talk about OnlyFans and how OnlyFans has kind of shifted how the adult industry works. Now, this was recorded before the whole OnlyFans debacle, so keep that in mind. For those of you that don't know, OnlyFans decided they were going to ban sexually explicit content on their site, and then recently rescinded that decision because of all of the pushback. And there are some actions, both in person and virtual, that are occurring today when this episode drops on September 1st. Because the reason OnlyFans made this decision was due to banks and their decision not to process payments that have anything to do with the sex industry. And the banks are doing this because of anti-porn lobbyists and anti-sex work lobbyists that are pushing them to do this for fear of legal action. So there is going to be a link in the show notes to sign on to this letter supporting sex workers and asking the banks to change their upcoming policies that are supposed to be launched on October 15th. Please, if you support sex workers, which I'm assuming you do if you listen to this show, sign that letter. The information to that letter of support for sex workers is going to be linked in the show notes, right there up at the top, so it's the first thing you see. But you can also access it via sexworksignon.com. Again, that's sexworksignon.com. And add your signature. You don't have to be a sex worker to sign. You can be just a supporter, an ally, a friend, a family member. Any and all support helps in this arena. Sex workers are trying to fight for their rights, for our identity as workers. And this is a workers' rights movement. And it's hard for us to gain any workers' rights when we're also constantly fighting for the right to survive and the right to be recognized as human beings. So any support y'all can give is really valued. So thank you. Okay. Now we can jump back into the podcasty stuff. I'm just going to take a minute here to say thank you to all of the Patreon supporters. You can support this show on Patreon at patreon.com/sexygalaxypod. You can follow us on Twitter at sexygalaxypod. You can follow me on Instagram. I post about the podcast at parker.westwood. And this show is brought to you by Companion Tax, a tax service for companions and people in the sex work industry. So you can check them out at companiontax.com. Okay, so now that we've got all of that out of the way, let's dive into the interview with Kate Kennedy. Kate Kennedy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. The way I normally start this show is to have the guest introduce themselves the way they prefer to be introduced, with name, pronoun, location, if you care to share it, and what kind of sex work you do or have done.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Kate Kennedy. My pronouns are she, her, but I will also answer to hey, you. I care very much about respecting everyone's pronouns. I am not at all picky about mine. I use male pronouns for my pussy for some strange reason. Never figured out why. Just like he's a him. Like he definitely is.
Love it.
I live in Hollywood in Los Angeles. And currently I just do online sex work. I do OnlyFans. I've kind of been transitioning away from so much of the in-person. In the past, I've worked as an escort. I was a porn star for a while. I've done lots of different kinds of content. And I've kind of started to move towards, I now do stand-up comedy and I'm a writer. So hanging up the heels a little bit. Oh, I also feature dance. I still do that. That's so fun.
Fantastic. I love that. As a former stripper, I'm like, yes. You can never not be a stripper after you started.
You can take the girl out of the strip club. You can never take the strip club out of the girl.
Exactly.
It's in you forever. Yeah.
Yes. And how did you get started in sex work?
So I was a year out of college and I could not find a job to save my life. I majored in advertising and in art history. And so there was not a lot of jobs in either of those fields. No one told me that it was a really bad idea to go spend a bunch of money on a degree in historical architecture.
Go figure.
Yeah. I got to suppose where are all the jobs? They're like, that's not a job. You just like going to museums. So I bounced around a little bit and then I was doing lifestyle BDSM at the time. So I was pretty involved. I volunteered at a dungeon in Denver. I had started traveling a little bit and doing different kinds of educational classes on both BDSM and polyamory and ethical non-monogamy. So I was already at a point where I was kind of traveling around the country and doing that. And I wasn't getting paid for it, which was starting to become a bit of an issue. And then I was up in Portland to do Kink Fest. And I randomly met these wonderful people that owned their own BDSM porn site up there. And a few months later, they emailed me and said, hey, we need a new marketing person. Would you ever want a job in the adult industry?
Awesome.
So I leapt at it. I went up and I worked on a set for one weekend. It was so much fun. I came home Monday, quit my job, packed up my car and moved to Portland. And I was a PA for hardcore BDSM and bondage porn for a year.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was the funnest job. I was just out in the woods in Oregon, wearing cargo pants and Doc Martens and a black baseball cap, building these crazy rigs to walk these hot girls into. And
yes,
it was so fun. I got to meet a ton of people that were in the porn industry in LA because we flew them up obviously to shoot. So then I went to AVN and kind of got some interest from some agents and made a trip down, started shooting more mainstream porn. And then ended up moving to LA the next year. And I performed pretty much consistently up until the pandemic. I was working as a porn star.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I love that. I also love that you were just and I'm done with this vanilla shit. Let's go.
I literally was thinking it was more money.
Yes.
I was working at one of those car accident auto injury clinics where they basically just scam people's insurance into saying that they need tens of thousands of dollars worth of chiropractic.
Oh my God.
So it was and I was doing records. It was the most boring shit. All I did was fill out and fax things to Social Security. I was my boss was a horrible bitch. I was I hate this so much. It was the best day when I got to quit.
Yeah, that sounds like a relief to get the hell out of there.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that I'm really excited to hear about that you had requested was taking us through a day in the life of Kate Kennedy. Yeah. So why don't you take us through a day in the life of Kate Kennedy?
So I just woke up about 30 minutes ago.
We're here. We're in it.
We're in it. There's no video with this podcast, but I have no makeup on. I'm doing rocking the oiled face, trying to keep my skincare up and slugging my coffee. I'm a comedian now, so I keep very odd hours. I feel like I have to defend this to people all of the time. But it's even with, one of the great things about doing sex work, especially online sex work, if you're trying to pursue something in Hollywood and entertainment, where it's really hard to have a day job and try to pursue this, because if you're up until, 3:00 in the morning working these clubs, you're not going to want to get up at 8 a.m. So I love that I can structure my sex work anytime I need to shoot for OnlyFans or whatever. Like I can always fit it in around everything else that I'm doing, and it fits into my life. And especially just because, most people that get to even pursue the kind of stuff I'm doing, like a lot of them have trust funds. They don't have to have jobs at all.
Right. Exactly.
So that's my long tangent of how OnlyFans is basically my trust fund. It functions the same way. But yeah, I get up later. I like to sleep in. I'm a night owl. But I usually wake up, I have my coffee, I read the news. I'm a big news junkie. And I take it really easy when I first wake up. I really like to, my mom calls it hatching. And
yes.
I need to greet the day. It takes a couple of hours. But then I'll, especially if I have to run, I have a limited amount of time when the stores are open where I can run my errands and I'm awake. Yes. So I get all my life stuff out of the way first. I take care of my dog. If I have to run to the grocery store or the bank or whatever, I get all that done first. And then I think this is like the best part of being a sex worker and getting to do this like OnlyFans online content is like, my job starts when I take my bath. I'm going to take a nice relaxing bubble bath. I'm going to have a glass of wine, and I'm doing this 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm going to smoke a joint, just totally feel myself, feel really pretty, spend the time, do my hair, do my makeup, lay out my outfits. And then I'll kind of bop around to music and shoot any customs that I might have, any content that I need for the week. I keep track of, how much I need to be putting out every week. But yeah, I really will just kind of bop around until it's time to make dinner, and then I'll chill with my dog. If I have a show that night, I'll go do my comedy show and try to in between, squeeze in where I can write and stuff. I'm kind of at a point where I really only shoot one day a week, which is very nice.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah. Because trying to do it too much is really difficult. And if you're efficient, you can get all your content done in a day.
Yeah. And then you don't have to, put on lashes more than one day a week and all of that.
Shave more than that. I was getting terrible ingrown hairs. I was like, I cannot do this to my poor sensitive pubic area. I know. This is terrible.
Our poor pores, really.
Seriously. Yeah, I've gotten very into skincare through this pandemic. So I'm really trying to take.
You are glowing. You are indeed. No one can see it, but listeners, Kate is glowing.
I recently got into oils, so I'm trying all of these different moisturizing grapeseed and rose hip, and yeah,
it's the jam.
Feeling very pampered.
Well, so you spend quite a lot of your day alone, which I imagine, since you're a comedian and we've talked a little bit, you are hilarious. Spending time alone is something that you have a lot of fun with, but do you find yourself feeling isolated or lonely? And how do you cope with that if you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really hard, especially the last year. I live alone with my dog. I'm not a roommates person. I'm a bad roommate. I own that. I'm a terrible roommate. I'm really, really picky. I don't like other people's noise. When people touch my things, I freak out. So I know that about myself. I need to live alone. It's okay.
Self-awareness is good. Yeah.
I'm one of those dogs at the shelter where they're this is a single dog household.
Yeah.
This dog don't.
Yes.
And it's been hard. I mean, I'm lucky in the sense that I live in this big, beautiful old building in Hollywood, and almost everyone that lives here is youngish. They're all kind of in their late 20s to early 40s. So everyone's kind of in my age range, and it's a lot of artists and writers and creative people. So a lot of them are home. So I have a lot of friends that live right next door, which is great. Yeah. It's the perfect blend of adult apartment, but kind of college dorm where I can just run down and then go back to my own home. So that's been really helpful. I mean, I'm glad I have a good group of friends out in LA that I can, every week there's always someone, let's go to the beach, let's go to the desert, let's go, because I think we all kind of recognize that about ourselves. So I'm lucky that I'm around a lot of other people that have that same struggle, even if they're not sex workers. Especially through the last year, but it's hard, and it can be really hard to motivate yourself. It can be hard when you're not feeling sexy.
Yes.
And you're I have to get this done. It's not like writing a report for your boss where you can just do it in sweatpants and it doesn't matter. If you're having anything going on with your skin or your body, that is kind of impact your confidence or whatever. it's really hard to motivate yourself. And also like, because you are working for yourself. So I often joke that I'm like the worst boss I've ever had and the worst employee I've ever had to manage. Like, I'm terrible. I don't like dealing with myself on either side of that. Some days I wake up and I'm like, you know what? Who's going to yell at me if I don't take these nudes today? Fucking no one. I'm gonna lay on my couch and eat chips with my dog and play video games all day, like a grown adult child. But I do try to stay motivated. It helps to have like other people, like I have like my PR person or like an editor who will, because I'm very good about, if someone asks me to deliver something, boom, I'm on it. I value and respect other people's time way more than I do my own.
Right. Oh, it's such a bitch. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah. And accountability structures are important in order to motivate. Yeah.
They're so bad. I'm like working on it. I'm honestly working on it with my mom right now.
Oh yeah.
It's been really cool. Obviously when I first got into sex work, my parents were not thrilled.
Like they do. Yep.
Like they do. We had, a lot of spats. We didn't talk for a while, but they've really both made a huge effort to, we've gone to therapy all together. My mom and I just started going to therapy, the two of us together once a month.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's awesome. I mean, they really didn't, I have very bad ADHD. We talked about this earlier. They didn't understand that. And it's been really cool. My mom really came out and was like, I want to know how your brain works, because clearly didn't understand it when you were little. And I want to help you now. And I want to like repair that relationship, which is so cool. So I've been texting my mom and I'll be like, hey, today's not a great day. And she'll be like, well, what do you think you can accomplish today? I'm like, okay, awesome. Like accountability partner. Very nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is so great. When, just to touch on the family a little bit, when you came out to them, how long ago was that?
I was outed, so I didn't get the chance.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. By my cousin, who's an asshole. Mitch, if you're listening to this, you're a fucking asshole. I still don't like you. I didn't like you when we were kids either.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, so I'm still not happy about that. But I had probably lived in LA, I think like 6 months, maybe.
Okay.
So I had been in the stuff I was doing before with like the BDSM, and even when I was living in Oregon and working there, like it's such niche content that when I dipped my toe into sex work, I didn't like dive in. I was like wading into a really cold pool.
Yes.
I was like, I'm going to get down on this step and this step, because there really wasn't a ton of risk in fact, like in terms of, oh, someone's going to see this. Like this is not front page of Pornhub. This is really like, you would have to go look for it.
Right.
So I was doing that for a while. And then when I started doing like more mainstream stuff and was working for like, I was like in a Pornhub banner ad, like I'm not surprised that people saw it. So I was braced for that. And I mean, it was not a fun thing to go through with my family. I know it caused them a lot of pain as well. And not that that's necessarily my fault, but I still take responsibility in terms of like, I was a bit of a coward of not saying it to them. I should have. We all make mistakes. They've acknowledged theirs. I've acknowledged mine. And, we've moved on. It's been a few years, so that's good.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's hard because there's stigma, and when it's a bomb that is dropped, that is a really, really hard thing to recover from.
Yeah, it really is. Well, and it's hard for them to understand too, I think, because I because they have that stigma and they're older and that's kind of their generation. Like I can see where they're coming from in terms of like, why the fuck are you doing this?
Right.
You went to college, like, this. I'm like, I'm doing this because I had this conversation with them just recently. I'm like, I enjoy doing it, right? Like, I really like what I do. I think there's value in what I do and what I've done. I was like, I don't regret, even as I've moved away from mainstream porn and, now I very much do sex work to support myself while I'm pursuing these other dreams, which I think is totally valid. Totally. There's a ton of reasons why people do sex work. But I was like, you understand that I enjoyed it, right? Like it's a really fun job. Like at no point was I like, oh man, I wish I worked at McDonald's.
Right.
Like, yeah, no, I was like, you understand I was having a great fucking time, right? Like I was getting to fly all over and travel and meet these interesting people and get my hair done and my makeup, my nails. I was like, this was super fun.
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, I think porn is a really fun way to spend your 20s.
Yeah. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was like, this is so cool, you know, and it was just an experience that I never would have had. And also it opened up so many other doors for me that wouldn't have been opened. You know, I definitely never would have made it to Hollywood. I probably would have never made it out of my like small town. So
Yeah.
and
here you are. I love it. Have you been able to find like sex worker community nearby?
Yes and no. I definitely still have a few good friends from porn that I talk to regularly. One of my best friends still. I didn't drive with everybody. I don't drive with everybody. I have a small-ish social circle. But I definitely have, and like online as well. I mean, there's sex workers who I love and admire like their content and their activism and stuff. And it's so cool to get to have these friends. Like I have a friend in England and friends in New York and like people all over that, you get to interact with on Twitter and whatever. And it's nice. I also try to like, I've always been someone where, my DMs are always open to like new sex workers. If there's ever people that have like questions, I try to like, I just cleaned out all of my like 4 years worth of bra and panty and lingerie sets.
Oh my God.
So I mean, it was taking up an entire dresser in my room. I was like, this is sick, Kate. You don't fucking need this. Like, I love being a grown ass woman with a dress up closet. Like I never want to not, but this was out of hand. So I really try because I mean, a lot of that stuff is super nice. I wore it for a photo shoot and you can't, especially in porn, you really can't wear something twice.
Right.
Because they've already seen you in it. They've taken pictures. People will get confused. So I try to go through and I bag everything up. Everything is clean and in great condition. And I usually do like a giveaway on Twitter where I'll just say like, hey, if you know a sex worker that's just starting out or struggling, really needs this kind of stuff, like let them know and I'll pass along. I've done that with lights and cameras and, anything that I have that's still, I love that kind of mutual aid amongst sex workers. So I just try to support that.
Oh, that's so cool. It's a good thing to do just because there are times where people just need the equipment to like advance a little bit and you can just boost their stuff with that. That's great. I love that you do that.
And this, I mean, it's not like there's so many different ways to do it. It's not super high overhead to get into this industry. There's not like a ton of like access barrier, which is I think part of what makes sex work so powerful.
Absolutely.
Because it's really a way for like especially women to really change their financial status without those high barriers. But I mean, it does add up over the years. I mean, and I'm lucky that I have like great fans that will send me free gifts all of the time. Like I really don't have to buy as much, but I know that there's a lot of people that I love and like really are great, wonderful people that don't have that privilege. So I try to like pass it on whenever, because, it adds up. I mean, you go from like one ring light in the corner of your room to all of a sudden you're like, do I need to rent studio space? I need more closet. I live in an apartment with 3 walk-in closets, like, and they're all important.
Oh my God.
It's part of why I chose this apartment. They were like, I was like, someone came in, they're like, who would need 3 walk-in closets? I was like, this bitch. This one.
Amazing. Yeah. Having that many like costumes and dress up, like things to get dressed up in was always a dream. It's
so fun. I love it. Ugh. Like all the sparkles, the crazy shoes, because you were a stripper too, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. I love, like, it's just so much fun. I remember when I was a little kid, I really wanted light up sneakers.
Oh my God,
I wanted
me too.
So bad. And my mom was very anti light up sneakers, did not let me have them. I would look at them at Payless every time we'd go back to school. I wanted them so bad. And then I became a stripper and I bought clear plastic light up stripper heels.
Yes.
And I wore them. Oh my God. I was so happy. They broke immediately. Like they were,
of course.
I mean, I understand what she was talking about now, where she was like, these aren't going to last. This is not this is not a smart purchase. But I'm so glad I bought them.
That's amazing. So I'm going to pivot a little bit into stand-up comedy. How did you get started in stand-up comedy?
So my first anal scene got canceled.
Interesting start. I love this
short version. So I had done because I was living in LA and I'd started doing a lot of podcasts, because I mean everyone has podcasts. I'm pretty sure if you live here longer than a year and you don't have one, they kick you out. But I started doing just like various adult industry ones, and I had done one for this guy, and I was doing improv at Second City here in Hollywood. So I always knew I wanted to do comedy. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to get into that as much as I could. And I had kind of started hanging out with more of those people. And I did this one podcast for this guy. We finished and he's like, hey, you're really funny. And I know you want to try stand up. If you can write 5 minutes, you can open my show at the Comedy Store in Hollywood.
Oh.
And I was like, yes, I would love to do that. That sounds amazing. So I'm really excited. And then not even like a week later, I get a call from my agent that they had just sold my first anal scene, which we had been working on for months. Like we sold it because if you're established enough, it's really hard to sell any kind of first for a premium anymore. There's just so many, it's a super competitive industry. It's just flooded with people. There's tons of talent. So it's hard to do. And we'd been working on it for months. I'd gone on go-sees and taking pictures, and we wanted to sell it to this one company that's like a little higher end. And so I get the call. They bought it. Awesome. It's the day after the comedy show.
Oh my God.
Like, okay, I can't be up until 2-3 o'clock in the morning drinking and telling jokes with people, and then go do an anal scene. Like, that's irresponsible. I can't do it. So I had to call him and I was like, hey man, I'm so sorry. I'd love to do it another time, but this came up and it's a lot of money. So, and he was very understanding. So cut to the scene was supposed to be on a Sunday and the show was Saturday night. It was a Thursday. And I got a call from my agent who told me that the director had called him and said that was a mistake, that he didn't think I was pretty enough to be on his website and he didn't like my face.
Rude.
Yeah. Which like also my face was maybe like not the focal point of that movie.
Right.
I don't know. I have a really nice butthole. Like, did you see that? So I mean, I'm freaking out, right? Because it's like the end of the month. I just lost $2,500, which was my rent. And I mean, I'm just, and I think to my credit, like this is very much the kind of person I am where when something really bad happens to me, like I will kick and scream about it for about 10-15 minutes. And then I'll instantly jump into, okay, where do we go from here?
Yep.
And typically I found that when really bad things happen to me in my life, like not getting a job after college or having my first anal scene canceled, it tends to open up some door that I haven't seen before. And it ends up being one of the best things that happens in my life. So I called my buddy back and I was like, hey, can I still do your show on Saturday night? And he's like, yeah, of course. So at that point I had 24 hours to learn how to write stand-up comedy.
Oh my God.
Go write a 5-minute set and go open for Jamie Kennedy at the Comedy Store on a Saturday night.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It was the craziest 24 hours. I mean, I drank a bottle of wine. I cried. I called my mom. Like took a shower and like made coffee. I brewed this like coffee in like a thermos. I have it still. I found it the other day. I typed my entire set out like paragraph form, which you never do.
No.
I typed the whole thing out like a fucking essay and like had it in the back of my Uber coming from the valley over the hill. And I'm like shaking, like trying to drink this coffee. And I ran my set by my Uber driver like 5 times.
Oh my God.
I typed it so well after that. But I went up and I did it and I actually did really well, which was awesome. And they had me back on that show for another like 6 months.
Oh,
and
awesome.
That kind of just took off from there. I started going to more mics. I started getting booked on other shows. I started doing more podcasts and like kind of started to establish this nice little career for myself. And then when the pandemic kind of started to happen, I was already 2020 kind of had it in my mind where I was like, I'm going to start phasing out regular mainstream porn. OnlyFans is doing really well. I'm now in a position where I can work for myself and just go pursue comedy and put everything into this. So it worked out really well.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's always those times where you're like, you feel like everything is lost. And then all of a sudden things really turn around.
Yeah. And taking a risk. Like you didn't have to call him back to be like, hey, can I be on your show? But you did.
Oh, I wanted to so bad. I was like, this is such a great, and also if there's anything I've learned about like living in LA, especially is that like opportunities don't usually happen twice.
Right.
Like, if someone gives you something you want it, you got to jump on it. You got to take it.
Absolutely.
And even if it doesn't work out, at least you don't feel like you missed it,
Yes.
Like,
yeah. Life
I think
lesson.
the worst thing I would do would be like, oh, I'll go humiliate myself on a Saturday night and then I'll never have to talk to anyone again.
Right.
Like it doesn't, I think especially as you get older and stuff too, you just realize you're like, oh, I'm going to feel so much worse if I wonder what would have happened rather than just try it. Or maybe that's just who I am as a person. I obviously jump into everything.
Totally. I mean, I relate to that too, though. And it's like, I I know I will remember it if I totally bomb, but pretty much everyone else in that room will forget about it within a day or two.
That's something I tell myself all of the time, where it's like nobody, and it's such a true statement in like stand up, especially, is that like no one is thinking about you as much as you're thinking about you.
Exactly. Because we're all a little narcissistic in that way. Like we're all thinking about ourselves. Yeah.
It's no one's going to remember. And like, and also when you do well, it's like, oh, it's such a good feeling.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. It's the best feeling in the world. So it's like, you know, and also there's times too, like, cause I mean, I've definitely had shows that didn't go the way I wanted them to. But I also don't really remember those parts. Even if I have a really bad show, I'll remember the 1 or 2 laughs that I got.
Right.
Like those stick in your brain because those feel so much, the good so far outweighs the bad, that that's what you remember and hold on to. And then you just go and try again the next night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It's all information.
It is. Yeah.
Oh, what's that? Go ahead.
Oh, it's all learning.
It's all learning. Absolutely. Yeah. Who's your biggest inspiration when it comes to comedy? Like who's someone you model after or look up to?
I try not to model after anyone, especially because, and that's like a very big like pitfall for new comics, is if you really like certain people's style and you watch a lot of their stuff, you end up doing just like a bad impression of them.
Yes.
And also like, I mean, a lot of my material is about sex work and it's about my experiences. So it is like a little bit more unique than just, you know, someone else's. But I mean, it's cool getting to be here, and especially like the Comedy Store, which is my favorite place, is that if you're a comedian there and they know you can go for free any night that you want.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, I go right now, I still go, but when I first started, I would go every single fucking night. And I would just sit in the back and you're just watching like Bill Burr, Whitney Cummings, Dave Chappelle, like every fucking night you're going to watch people work through stuff, and you're learning so much. And you're like, oh, because you're watching them develop their own material. That's where they go to go develop. So like, I remember watching like one of my favorite jokes that like taught me a lot about how to write jokes was watching Neil Brennan, who was one of the writers for Chappelle's show. He's a really funny guy. He has a bunch of great specials, but I was watching him do this joke, and it was over like a couple of months. I saw him do this joke like once a week. And like from the first time he started it to the last time he did it, you would see him change 1 or 2 things each week, and it would get better and better and better. And you're like, oh, I see what you're watching the process. And to me, that is so valuable, because like watching just a special that someone does, like that's, you know, they say your first special is 10 years of work. It's the accumulation of 10 years of doing stand-up. And so you're watching like the perfect, polished, finished product, which is beautiful and great, but you can't really learn from that. That's like looking at like a Kia Sorento and trying to figure out how an engine works.
Exactly.
Done. Like I want to see them put it together. So that's been so great. So I guess like just everyone who's involved in that place, and it's been such a great like kind of home away from home for me, coming here and, you know, being in a big city by yourself, and just, I mean, it's where I've met most of my friends to this day, and it's been a really supportive, wonderful place for me. It's the only place that I love so much that I also have reoccurring nightmares about.
That makes a lot of sense. I love that it's a focus on the process. Like that place can be a focus on the process rather than the product. As I've been working on a zine, and I'm just really seeing myself get caught up in the product. So I love hearing the like being able to witness someone else's process as an inspiration is really cool.
It's really cool. I mean, and that's the whole kind of ethos of that place. It does kind of feel like being in like grad school.
Cool.
You're just there and you're just working and you're learning. And that's what it's for, as opposed to just, you know, and like obviously there's crowds, there's tourists. It's a famous place. People love to come there. Yeah. Which is wonderful. But yeah, I mean, the idea is that it's really a place where you can go to learn, because there's nothing else like that. There's just big clubs and shows, and it's trial by fire. You learn, they throw you in the pool and you drown or you swim. So it's nice to have a place like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. One of the things that one of your pieces, I suppose it could be called, is the Kennedy assassination. Would you tell our listeners a bit about the genesis of the Kennedy assassination and just like your experience with it?
So the Kennedy assassination was my first time doing my own podcast. I learned a lot. I did it last summer. I was in lockdown with everybody. That's my Inside by Bo Burnham. And it is not nearly as good, but that's what I accomplished. I was doing a bunch of others. I was like regularly on certain podcasts at that point. So I was like, all right, I really got to go figure out to do my own. And I have always been fascinated. I read all of the comments on everything I ever do. I don't know if this is like narcissism or just I'm just genuinely interested.
I do the same thing.
Some people are so black and white on this. It's a very polarizing thing because there are certain people that are like, never look at the comments, never read them, never even look. I'm like, don't you want to know? Like, don't in the middle of the night, don't you just kind of like, I wonder what they think?
I know. I think it's a little masochistic. Yeah.
Very masochistic. And I'm a huge masochist. I think that's like my tagline on like a couple of my different
nice.
Professional masochist, I think is my Instagram bio.
Love it.
I mean, I just would look at the comments that I would get on my porn and then on other stuff I was doing, like podcasts and stuff. And like, I don't get a lot of hate. I really am lucky. I really don't get a lot of super mean DMs or anything like that, but I get weird ones. People are very critical of like certain things that I would never have thought to be critical of myself about. And I was like going through these comments and like one was just like, she's like Ted Bundy with great tits.
What?
Okay, first of all, that's hilarious. That's a great line.
That could be your Instagram tagline.
I think it was for a while. Because I was like, it's so funny. And I would just get, there was a short, I did Dr. Drew, and then there was a short period of time where a lot of people on the internet were convinced I was like a sociopath, which was really interesting.
Oh my God.
To deal with. But I was just getting all these like super weird comments and I was like, okay, I want to talk to these people. And also even like the mean ones, I'm like, I'm fascinated by the psychology of like what would bring you to do that to someone on the internet. Why would you say that? Why do you think, like, I'm just really interested in it. So, and obviously my name is Kate Kennedy. So the Kennedy assassination.
Yes.
Great fucking name for a podcast.
Yes.
Very easy imagery. I bought a Jackie O costume. I was like, this is great.
Amazing.
Super easy. I'm actually repurposing into a stripper outfit right now.
Hell yes.
I mean, it got really crazy because there was a few weeks last summer where I was just emailing or trying to figure out a way to contact every single person that had ever left a mean comment about me on like YouTube, on Pornhub. I'm like sliding into all of these DMs like, will you be on my podcast? Will you be on my podcast? It worked out really well. It turns out that's a great thing to say to a troll.
Will you please speak more about this? Yeah.
Like, you're a fat bitch and you're dumb and you're ugly, blah, blah. And like, oh my God. Will you be on my podcast and discuss this with me? They don't like it. So I did get a few takers and I would just record with them. A couple of them were really funny. I had to learn everything about that. And I did not have this studio set up at the time. So I really had to go figure out like how to how to book these people and how to edit the audio and how to publish. It turned out to be a lot of work. So
it's so much work.
It's so much work. And it was just me doing it alone. And I was like, okay, this is a ton. And also eventually I think they caught on to what I was doing and then nobody wanted to be on my podcast. I started getting a lot of messages from dudes where they're like, I'll pretend to be mean to you. I'm like, that's not the point. Like, you're
damn it.
Missing the fundamental reason behind this. So, but it was a great experience. I do 2 other podcasts now. But just doing that one by myself, I learned a ton. It was really fun. If there's ever a chance to like bring it back someday in some way, I would like to do it, but it was a great little project. It's still up everywhere. If anyone wants to go, listen to it. It's on like iTunes and Spotify and everything. And it's just the Kennedy assassination.
Amazing. It will be linked in the show notes for sure. Yeah, I love that. The psychology of stuff like that is really fascinating. I'm a little bummed you didn't get to continue and like explore that more, but I hope you get to later.
Thank you. I hope so too. If you guys are going to go listen, I recommend the episode Dick Pic Dentist. I think that's my favorite one. It's rather short, but it's this guy and he is a dentist and was sending me dick pics from his office.
Oh my God.
And I was like, do you understand why you shouldn't do that? He's like, well, I just think you're really pretty. And I was like, and it's just me like you can hear me like bashing my head against the desk.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
So that was a fun one.
I will definitely be going to listen to that one. And speaking of your other 2 podcasts, let us please talk about those. I know you are a co-host of Cam Girl Chronicles.
I am the host of Cam Girl Chronicles.
You're the host.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. And the co-host of Two Girls, One Mic, the Porncast, which the title of that is impeccable.
It's so great. It's my friend Alice's show. She had another co-host and I guested on it several times. And then for personal reasons, her other co-host had to bow out last year, I believe, or early this year. And so she hit me up and was like, hey, do you want to do this with me? And I was like, yes. Also, because Alice is like, we're very good friends. She's one of my best friends. We're very, very different. She's super type A. Like if you have a business idea and you tell it to her, she will come back in a week with like a color-coded binder of everything you need to do.
Oh my God, yes.
And is like super into patent law.
We need people.
We need people like that. Like us creative people, we need people like that. So her and I work wonderfully together, and we interview different people from the adult industry, different porn performers. We also do have on like comics and academics. We've had lawyers. We have an episode coming up where we're interviewing a furry. To learn more about that subculture. So usually when we have comedians on the show, and it's pretty split between, she books all the guests also. So I really just have to show up and be charming. That's my lovely. That's my ideal job. But so normally we watch porno parodies for the plot. So we skip all of the sex parts and we just watch, like we've done Kill Bill. We did The Big Bang Theory.
Oh my God, yes.
Like Harry Potter. So it's super funny. We like go in and we just watch all of the acting. And then we compare it to whatever it's parodying. We, like the Kill Bill one was like a lovely little homage to Tarantino. Like it was good. I was like invested. Like it's different than regular Kill Bill, but I was like, I want to know what happens to these characters. Like this is good. So yeah, it's a really fun show to do. I love getting to do it with her.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And then Cam Girl Chronicles is one that and I actually got through Alice as well. But I do it with a studio in New York. It's for I'm Live, which is a really cool cam website. And I interview cam girls from all over the world about their jobs and their lives and what sex work is like, especially in other countries. It's super cool. Like the two most like emerging cam markets right now are Romania and Colombia.
Oh, really?
So I talked to a lot of girls from Romania. I've talked to a lot from Colombia, some from the US, but it's super fascinating. I mean, I think even as a sex worker, as like an American sex worker, we sort of do have like a bit of a Western perspective on it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's amazing how much stigma even I still had that I kind of had to check about, especially Eastern European sex workers. Right. There is such a stereotype of like, these women must be trafficked. Like I'm embarrassed to say that I thought that, but I did. I was, and I joke too, like there's always one Russian girl at the strip club and she's not the girl you want to cross.
Truth.
She's always super hot. She's like 6 feet tall, blonde. Her name is usually Svetlana and she will fuck you up. But I mean, it's fascinating. It's super interesting how, especially in these like former like Eastern Bloc countries, like their attitude towards sex work is so different, because a lot of these girls, like women, I should say, like they support their families, like their parents, it lets them make a really good living on a very flexible schedule. I mean, the same things that appeal to us about sex work. And it's so cool. I mean, they work out of these gorgeous studios in like Bucharest where they're on a sound stage. They have like handlers that have all of the AV equipment, and it looks like a Vegas hotel. I mean, it looks like you're like the Aria or the Cosmo. It's gorgeous. And like they have like a commissary and a nail tech and a makeup lady.
Oh my God.
They like go to work. Like they drive to work and they go to work. And it's so different than the way it is in the US, and it's super fast. I'm like dying to go visit now. We wrapped up the first season. We're hopefully going to get started on the second coming up here soon. And we said for the third season, we really want to go over to Romania and go meet these girls in person, because they're and they're so funny. Like some of the stories we've heard have just been absolutely hilarious. Like they're so sweet. Like I'm like, oh my God, like I want to be friends with all of you. And of course they're all fucking gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, yeah. And because of the time difference, I usually have to be up at like 5 a.m. to do that show.
Wow.
And I'm talking to this like absolutely stunning, like 22-year-old on the other side of the world. And I'm like, good morning. What can I do? Welcome to Cam Girl Chronicles.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that you acknowledge the like, even though we are sex workers, we still have some internalized stigma and assumptions and all of these things. I think that that's something really important to acknowledge in the fight for sex workers' rights, is that like we all carry this internalized stigma, and that can come out in certain generalizations or assumptions made about other sex workers.
Yeah.
And about ourselves, honestly.
Oh, totally. I mean, the hierarchy is very real.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a great like sociology professor tell me this one time that I think is so true about everything, is that, you know, we all have internal bias, but bias is really just the lens through which you view the world. And that lens is manipulated by your own experiences. Yes. And it's fine to have those because it's part of your perspective. It's part of how you see, but you have to be aware that the lens that you're viewing the world from is not the way everyone else is viewing the world. Yes. And it's not necessarily correct. And so it's just very interesting to get to like broaden your horizon that way. And like, it's been just such a cool project to work on. Like I don't think that was the intent of them wanting to do a podcast, because they really came to this production studio, the guys that own I'm Live, and wanted to, you know, a lot of cam studios and OnlyFans and stuff are trying to branch out more into safe for work, like lifestyle content as well.
Yes.
And kind of blurring the lines, which I actually think is a great thing. But they really they're like, you know, let's do like a safe for work, like comedy podcast. And I'm like, this is breaking down stigma. So cool. But I also get to write a bunch of like super fun jokes for it. And it's been really cool because I've really gotten to work with like these professional producers that like make radio, and learned how to like structure a season arc and how to structure like an episode. And, you know, they send me like the outline of, it's this interview and this and that. And then I write in all of like these bridge jokes and punchlines and different segments. And I've gotten to like come up. We did one where we're announcing like the top girls on their site, because they're, you know, they rank in terms of like the number one earner or whatever. And we did it like a horse jockey announcer.
Oh my God. Yes.
So I was like I watched like hours of like vintage, like old school, like horse jockey announcer races. Like, and coming into the turn, and they're pulling up ahead by a mile. And it was so much fun to do. So I've just gotten to do like all sorts of stuff like that, which is just we play games and there's contests, and it's just been really cool to like learn I feel like I've learned so much from doing that, which has been awesome.
Oh, that's so dreamy. I love that so much.
Very worth getting up at 5 a.m. I grumble about it to my producer all the time because she's always on the calls with me. She's like, how you doing, Kate? I'm like, got my coffee. Okay.
5 a.m. is early, but that sounds wonderful. Speaking of OnlyFans kind of changing the way we do, like the adult industry has been working. You got featured in Men's Health talking about your ideas around OnlyFans and how it's changed the adult business. Would you share a little bit about that, like what you shared with Men's Health, and just your thoughts on that?
Yeah. First of all, and I say this to every sex worker, if any magazine or like media mainstream person comes and asks you for a quote about something, fucking do it. Think about how it's going to come out, because they will occasionally. I've had one or two where I gave an interview and I'm like, that's not really what I meant.
Yeah.
So, you know, think it out, maybe take a little bit of like PR, babe 101, baby steps. But I mean, that kind of exposure in like those kinds of publications, because I've been in like Men's Health and Playboy and the New York Post and like all of these different, and it's just that reach is invaluable for your brand. So just want to get that out first.
Very true.
And also like, because I also write for Hustler. And so I will put out like open calls on Twitter of like, oh, I need to talk to sex workers that are involved in blah, blah, blah. And like, it's like pulling fucking teeth. And I'm like, do you guys know how valuable it is to have your name in one of these? Like you get, every time I'm in one, I get a ton of new OnlyFans subscribers. Like all of my like socials jump, like just answer my fucking emails, guys. Please give me quotes for my stories. Do it for everyone else too. Anyways, yeah, I mean, OnlyFans is so interesting because I think the adult industry tends to be like a couple years ahead of where mainstream content and entertainment is anyways. I mean, that's why they had CES, like the Consumer Electronics Show, right before AVN for so long, because even they, like mainstream, knew this too. Is that even back in the days of like VHS, you know, we were transitioning to DVD, and now it's like the VR, and there's all these new tech frontiers, and the ways we use technology, and adult is always on the cusp of that, like on the forefront. So, you know, I even from when I had first gotten in, I joined OnlyFans in 2017. So I've been on it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really different, but there already was such a push of, you know, and I think it was more focused back then on like a lot of clip sites, and like cancers kind of stuff like that. We weren't going all in on the subscription model like we have now, which I do think works so fucking well.
Oh yeah.
But it was already this push towards, we want to own our content. We want to make our own money. We want to shoot what we want to do. And so from day one, when I got into the adult industry, everyone was pushing me like, you got to shoot your own content. If you're not on set that day, you know, go shoot your own stuff. So, and I remember the first couple of years I was on OnlyFans, I mean, a good month, I would make like $300 or $400.
Right.
It was not making a lot of money. I mean, it was paying like my car payment. It would, you know, pay for a couple of things, but, it bill obviously make a lot more than that now. But it's the ability, it's really put that power for us to be able to make our own money on our own schedule, shooting what we want with who we want, in the hands of the performers, which is really cool. I mean, even people that have gone back to shooting professional porn, especially post pandemic, are very open about saying, I don't really care about the check I'm getting today. This is promo. If people see me on Brazzers or on Naughty America, they're going to want to go subscribe to my OnlyFans.
Yep.
They're going to think I'm hot. So this is really just a way to get my name out there, which is fascinating because then you don't have an industry full of people that are so dependent on booking this work. They can just go make their own product. And I think both mainstream and adult have really gotten into that between like Patreon and OnlyFans and everything. I mean, everybody is monetizing their own stuff now, which is really cool. It is, I mean, it's different. Like I joked, especially at the beginning of the pandemic too, and I still get people that say this once in a while, where they're like, oh, you do. And it's usually like other comics, people that are just like a little jealous, but they're like, oh, all you have to do is take nudes. Like all you have to do is like, your job is so easy. It's like,
I can't.
I'm like, okay, like, no, I mean, there are definite pros to it, but I'm like, we basically got thrown into the position of like, when I was doing professional porn, I only had to be on set like 3 days a month to pay all of my bills.
Right.
And the rest, the other 27 days, I could fuck off and do whatever I wanted. Now I'm in a position of having to like write, shoot, direct, star in, and edit a porno by myself every week. Like I didn't sign up for those other jobs. I just wanted to have sex and look pretty. And those were the parts that I was interested in.
Yes.
And all of a sudden I'm like, it's 2 a.m. and I'm trying to fucking learn Final Cut. And I don't want to do that.
Yes.
So, I mean, it has like increased our workload, but I also think just like for performers, because more and more, I mean, if you're trying to get someone to subscribe to your OnlyFans, it's not just like the same motivation of someone just clicking onto Pornhub, right? They're there for you. You're really trying to build this like kind of cult of personality and this personal brand. And it's much more akin to like how an influencer builds up their fan base than necessarily like how a porn star goes to work. So even though they're related, it's a very different job.
Yes. And the like, all you have to do is take nudes thing is like that argument there is the kicker for me, where it's like there's so much more emotional labor involved in like getting people compelled to follow you and get invested in what you've got going on. Like it's a lot more than posting a few nudes here and there.
It's so much. And well, because you have to like, there's a million hot girls on the internet. Like, exactly. And I tell people this every day. I'm like, if you want to play the game of who's the hottest girl on the internet, who has the biggest tits, who has the nicest ass, fine, feel free. You're going to lose. You are always going to lose. There's always going to be somebody out there that has a better body, a prettier face. Like you cannot win that game. So you have to go really into yourself and be like, what is so compelling about me? What is so interesting? You're really trying to make these people fall in love with you.
Exactly.
And like, that is a whole, I mean, psychologically, that is like a huge leap to make as a person, and to try to keep yourself balanced between who am I and who is my brand, because there's a very fine line between brand authenticity, which I care about a lot, and mental health.
Yes.
My brand is very much who I am. I like try to think of it as like the best parts of me. Like the best, me on my best day, at my prettiest, at my most bubbly, sparkly, whatever. but that's not me every day.
Right.
And so having to allow yourself, and also even allowing yourself to just like go have fun and live like a normal person. Like, I can't tell you, every time I take a trip anywhere, even when it's like for fun, I'm so tempted. If I'm in like a pretty place, I'm like, we got to shoot content. We got to shoot like, it's always, no matter what I'm doing. If I'm like I was redoing a bunch of like home improvement projects this summer, and I was like, I need to do this in my underwear and I need to film it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just step back and be like, just do this because you like it. It's okay. Like, I just went on a trip and I very purposely took absolutely no pictures, and it was so relaxing.
It's so important. You have to have boundaries. Even if like it's a perfect opportunity, sometimes you just have to really hold your boundaries.
Well, and it's a job that you can work. The great thing about it is you can make your own schedule. That also means that you can theoretically be working anytime. Yes. So there are days when like I will wrap up a whole day of getting all this stuff done, and I'm sitting on my couch and I'm like, I could be doing more work right now. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. I could be shooting. I could be editing. I could be coming up with this. I could be scheduling content for next month. And like, it's so hard to not, at least for me, like, I mean, I'll just mentally beat the shit out of myself being like, why are you so lazy? And it's like, no,
oh my God,
no one works that much. Like, just relax. But you know, you don't have an office to go to. You don't have a boss saying this is due X day. Really, how much you make, how big you get, like that's all in your own hands. So having to balance that and be healthy with it, that's been a huge journey for me this year, especially.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's especially with the ADHD thing too, because it's something I also wrestle with. Like, I keep a list of what I have to do today, and I will add things that I've done and cross things off. And it is as evidence that I have not been a lazy piece of shit that day. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much I've gotten done, I just sit down and I'm like, I could be doing something. Like exactly that thought.
I do exactly the same thing. Sometimes I write things down just to cross them off.
Yes.
Because I need the evidence that I'm like, oh no, you did that. That was a lot of work. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's like, it's a very frustrating, again, I'm like such a terrible person to like manage and work for. Like, I hate working for myself. Oh my God. I'm so mean to me. But yeah, I've really been trying. And also, like, I think if you get so far into that mentality, you forget what you liked about the job in the first place.
Yes.
Which was that I don't have to work all of the time.
That, and we need that like breathing room to feed our creativity. Like, there's no way like all of those outfits in your closets are going to inspire you unless you take time away from everything and come back to it.
Yeah, of course. Like, yeah, there's, you know, like you need that time to just write or do hobbies. Like, I mean, that's a big thing too, I think. And that extends even beyond sex work. But that's a huge thing in Hollywood. I say this to my friends all the time. I'm like, it's okay to just have a hobby that you don't make money off of.
Yes.
Like, you can just do this because you like it, and you don't need to, like, I'll start like sewing. I sew. So I'll be like doing a sewing project. I'm like, I should do an Etsy store. I'm like, no, you fucking shouldn't. Like, oh, what? No, you're just ruining everything that you love by making it work. Like, I used to love taking nudes when I was like 19, 20.
Yes.
I wasn't selling them. I was just doing them because I looked hot and I was like into it. I used to post them on Tumblr for free because I liked the attention. I'm like, where's that girl? Like, that's the energy.
And now you're just like, fuck, now I gotta go do the thing. Yeah.
I hate this. Yeah. So dumb. I'm like, that's part of what we were talking about earlier with like the day in the life. I mean, that is part of why I am so frou-frou about my whole like shooting routine, where I'm like, I'm gonna take a bath and have a glass of wine. Like,
yes,
listen to music. I really try to make it like fun, sexy me time so that it doesn't feel like work. Because, you know,
I don't want it to feel like work.
To feel like work, and it shouldn't feel like work, right? Like, I'm getting dressed up, I look pretty, I'm getting to take these great pictures. You know, I look through my phone, I'm like, that's me. Oh, great. You know, that should be fun.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. And I got into it because I like it. It's the same with comedy. There's so many people that are like, as a comedian, you should be miserable all the time and just in this depth pit of despair. And I'm like, how is that working out for you? Because I tried that and it sucked. I didn't like any of it. I write a lot better when I'm happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't need to be miserable to be artists. That is a fact.
Yes. You don't need to be starving to be an artist. You can eat well and get an adequate amount of sleep.
Yes. Let us abolish that myth right now, because abundance and artistry can happen at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Honestly, good art usually does. When I'm super depressed, like, I mean, Shakespeare wrote King Lear during quarantine. That's not widely not considered his best play.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I had a joke for a while where I was like, if he had written Titus Andronicus during the plague, like this would be a much different conversation and girl bosses would not be toting this. And so I was like, that's a really specific joke. And I was like, I know.
I love it. I'm here for it.
I love writing jokes that are only funny to like 5 people.
It's the best kind because you're just like, I know you're my people.
It's my first one I ever wrote, and I still do it occasionally just when I'm feeling kind of shitty. But it was, do you guys think that Salman Rushdie was mad that he had to write the entire satanic verses in order to get a fatwa declared against him when all Mia Khalifa had to do was suck dick in a hijab?
Oh my God. That's amazing.
And like people who get that joke really get it, but you're coming from two very different people, most known for having fatwas declared against them.
Oh yeah,
super different reasons, but you really have to know both of those people for that.
Yes,
joke.
You really have to get it. You have to be up with it. There's on my booking form, just to kind of like get a vibe for who's wanting to see me. There's one question that is, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? And the answer to that question really tells me a lot about the person. And I love it.
I don't know the answer to that question.
It is a Monty Python and the Holy Grail, or Monty Python. Yeah.
Okay.
Reference.
I should know that. I miss those a lot.
It's okay. I haven't seen it in years, but I thought I'd be cheeky. And it's been fun seeing how people answer that one.
Oh yeah, totally. I think that's a great thing to have on like your booking form.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's always good to know who you're dealing with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good vibe check.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If people don't like get my jokes, I'm instantly just kind of like, okay, like, cool, go do you, but clearly we have nothing in common. That's fine.
Exactly. Is there anything that you are currently working on that you would like to plug on the show?
Yeah, I mean, those podcasts, go listen to them. You can find them anywhere. I have some cool writing stuff coming up here. They can't really talk about just yet. I have a bunch of stuff coming up, but I can't really talk about any of it. I hate it. I'm such a bad secret keeper too. I'm so bad at it. I really just tell people, I'm like, don't tell me what it is until you're ready to like let everyone know, because I'm just so bad. I've tried to get better.
You're doing great right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so tempted. I'm like really excited about these things. I mean, just follow my Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, that's always where the updates come from. I do have, I'm back to future dancing now. I can talk about that. Which I love. Future dancing is just, it's the best job. It's so much fun. It is like the closest to being a drag queen you can be as a woman. Which is my favorite. Yes. Because I mean, day to day, I'm in sweats and ponytail, and but I like to dress up, and that is just because it's not like being a house dancer. Like the costumes are over the top. I mean, when I started, they were like, you have to buy a bedazzler. Like my agent was like, you have to go buy a bedazzler. And I was like, oh, yank my arm. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna wear this right fucking now, because everything is super sparkly. The shoes, the hair, it's just so over the top. It's really, really fun. You get to pick all your own music, you get to travel. Like prior to the pandemic, I would be in like New York every other month, and Vegas, and like Sacramento, Atlanta, Chicago, Philly, like, and they fly you out. You get to stay at nice hotels. They pick you up in a limo. Like you have a dressing room, you have an assistant. I'm always like, I am not this important. Like, it's very weird. You guys are treating me like. The first time I went to Vegas and they had my face on the poster, I like made the driver get out, and I was like, can you take a picture of me next to it? And I'm like,
yes,
so excited, thumbs up. Super dorky. But yeah, I'm back to doing that. So I have 3 dates in Sacramento in September 8th through 11th, I believe. 8th through 10th. Yeah. Awesome. It'll be on my Twitter. But yeah, I'm at the Gold Club, so I'm really excited. I have to go bedazzle a Sacramento Kings jersey after this.
Yeah.
So I'm back to that. So hopefully I'll be in more cities coming up here. And yeah, just keep an eye on my Twitter, and yeah, things are happening.
Awesome. Yeah. And then is there anything, as kind of a final question before we get into some rapid fire, what is one thing you wish the greater public would understand about sex workers or sex work as a whole?
Oh man, so many things.
I know.
I think the biggest thing is like, we're just people, Like, we're normal people with a fascinating job. You know, where everyone has different motivations for getting into sex work. They're all valid. Everyone has different experiences. I think that's a big one, because a lot of times, even in like the media, I see people interviewing these like sex workers about different topics. And I'm like, I know that person and they don't do that. Like, they're talking about, you know, like, we don't all have, I can only speak to my own experiences, right? I did mainstream porn. I did high-end escorting. I was a dancer very briefly, and I do OnlyFans. Like, I don't know what it's like to be a cam girl on MFC. You know, I don't know what it's like to do that. I don't know what it's like to be a street sex worker. I don't have those experiences, so I can only speak to my own. And as we all can. But yeah, that we're just people. If you don't think that you know a sex worker, you do. They're just not comfortable enough to tell you. Everybody knows a sex worker. And a lot of people do this for, I guess, again, people do this for so many different reasons. People do it because they like it. People do it to escape poverty. People do it to put themselves through med school. I really think our society, class mobility is at its lowest point since like 1880 in our society today. It's almost impossible, if you're not born into money, to achieve even like comfortable middle class life. And sex work is one of the only industries where predominantly women are able to make those big financial gains without super high barriers of entry. And that is really important from like an economic and social standpoint. And I think that that needs to be talked about more.
I agree. Wonderful. Love that.
There's like 5 things I think everyone should know.
I think that'll just like all end up in the show notes. I'm just gonna like transcript that one because that was really lovely. All right, we're gonna get into some rapid fire questions. The point of these is to just kind of get to know you as a person a little bit more, on like a silly level. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Excellent. Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Salty or sweet?
Salty.
Hiking or swimming?
Oh, swimming. I fucking hate hiking.
Okay, follow up. Ocean or lake?
Lake, because I don't fuck with sharks.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your favorite place you've ever been?
Oh God. The Comedy Store.
Love that.
Yeah.
A book from your mandatory reading list.
Ooh, I read a lot.
I can tell.
Yeah.
I love it.
Mandatory. It's so hard to pick one. I'm gonna go with anything by Bret Easton Ellis. Less Than Zero, probably.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Or
I like Salinger a lot too. I like his For Esme with Love and Squalors, like my favorite stories. Yeah.
Oh, so good. A song, an album, or a musical artist that you've been obsessed with lately?
Lately, I listen to really old stuff.
Like, I love that.
Like, yeah. I mean, I've stripped to Steely Dan.
Yes.
I used to do Bruce Springsteen all of the time. I'm always obsessed with Dolly Parton. I absolutely fucking love Dolly Parton.
How could you not?
How could you? I mean, I think a lot of white people who grow up in the Midwest or South grow up with this weird thought that Dolly Parton is like their great aunt. I thought Dolly Parton was a member of my family until I was like 7.
I love that.
Like I firmly thought that she was just a member of my family. She's not. Spiritually.
That's amazing. Yeah. What is your secret talent?
I can say the alphabet backwards.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to demonstrate it?
Yeah. ZYX, WV, UTS, RQP, OMN, LKJ, IHG, FED, CBA.
Oh my God. Wow. That was so fast.
I know. My mom taught me how to do it when I was little. Her grandpa taught her how to do it. It's like a fun little family.
Aw.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Finish this sentence. Good sex is
enthusiastic sex you have with someone that you really like.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you had one superpower, what would it be?
I think I'd be able to fly. I live in LA, so that would be very appealing because I could get to the airport a lot faster.
I love that. You wouldn't even need the airport.
You're right. I wouldn't even need the airport. Why am I saying of all the places I would fly to the airport? Oh my God, Kate. Wow. Dream big, kid.
You might need more coffee.
I'm almost done with this pot. I do usually drink too.
Oh, a woman after my own heart.
Yeah, I think I would fly. That would be pretty awesome because traffic sucks and that'd be pretty fun. I think second I would say I'd be invisible because I love eavesdropping on other people's conversations.
Yes, it's so good.
Really one of my favorite things. I'll like go to bars and sit by myself and just like listen to people on like a bad first date next to me and like write down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crack open a book but not read anything at all.
I used to go to this little place that like it was like a big first like Tinder date place, and I would go alone and the bartender knew I did this, so I'd sit at the end of the bar and he'd always push like a candle closer to my notebook so I could see what I was writing. And he would take shots of me and he'd be like, "That guy's a fucking dick," and I'd be like, "I know." He brought up his owning a katana within like the first 2 minutes of this Tinder date. Like,
oh no,
big cringe. So fun. It's
Bad
like one
move.
of the things the pandemic really robbed me of was my ability to. You have to stand really close to eavesdrop on people.
It's true.
You can't socially distance.
Oh, that's amazing. And the final question is, what is something simple that brings you joy?
Sleeping in, rolling over, and my dog being on the pillow next to me, just on like a nice, warm, sunny afternoon, knowing that I don't really have to do anything today. I can just chill, and she's, my whole world. So
They're
anything with her. Yeah, she makes me so happy.
Ugh, I love that.
I love her.
Aww. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Let's say goodbye to the listeners.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks
Bye.
for listening.
Have a good day, y'all. Thank y'all for listening. That was such a fun interview. I had such a good time, if you couldn't tell. I love my job. I love it. I mean, I love my job. This isn't really my job, but I love this particular hobby of mine, and I also love my job. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm just really grateful that I get the opportunity to talk to so many other sex workers that I wouldn't normally get to talk to. And I wouldn't have that opportunity if y'all weren't listening and supporting the show. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll say it again. Thank you. And here we go with a space fact that I did not premeditate. So it might be a little strange. You're welcome. So, if you decide during your galactic travels, intergalactic travels, that is, to get into a relationship with someone of a different species, it's important to remember that their expectations of what a relationship is on a base level may and most likely will be different from yours. So once you get the language barrier or your little device that will translate for you figured out, be sure to find out what their expectations are and clearly state your own in order to ensure the relationship's success. You know what? Maybe you should just do that in all your relationships anyways. So space travel or not, communicate clearly. Be kind, y'all. Nanu nanu, motherfuckers.